今回の現場からおよそ1キロ離れた尼崎市内のこちらの倉庫では去年11月コンクリート詰めにされた女性の遺体が発見されています。今回の遺体の捜索発見はそもそもその事件が発端となっています。
Police found the body in a concrete-filled drum in the waters off Okayama prefecture.
捜索開始から3日目、3人目の遺体が乗せられていると思われる警察関係車両が今捜索現場を後にしようとしています。
Japanese police and prosecutors are building their case against a woman they say was the mastermind behind a kidnapping, torture, and murder ring.
隅田美代子容疑者は
隅田美代子被告が
隅田美代子容疑者が
Miyoko Sumida.
On the 9th of November 2011, in the industrial city of Amagasaki, Hyogo prefecture, police made a gruesome discovery. Inside a warehouse, the body of a 66-year-old woman was found encased in concrete inside a metal drum. The body was identified as that of local resident Kazuko Oe, a mother of two. When investigators dug deeper into the case, more and more names started to surface. One name in particular kept coming up as a person of interest in the events leading up to Kazuko Oe's death. That name was Miyoko Sumida, a 64-year-old grandmother and long-term resident of Amagasaki City. Around a month later, on the 5th of December, Miyoko, among others, was arrested for inflicting injury to Kazuko Oe, resulting in her death. While police initially believed this to be an isolated murder, in which Miyoko was a possible accomplice, a dive into Miyoko's past revealed connections to other deaths surrounding Miyoko's social circle. On the 14th of October, 2012, less than a year after finding Kazuko Oe's body, police discovered 3 bodies under the unoccupied Amagasaki home of 88-year-old Nori Minayoshi. Nori Minayoshi had not been seen since 2003, though rent had been paid by her granddaughter, Rui, for the last 8 years. Officers were told at the time that Nori Minayoshi had been buried in Takamatsu City, Kagawa Prefecture. The situation, however, raised multiple questions. Again, the name Miyoko Sumida appeared to be linked, as investigators found out that Rui was married to Miyoko's son. 2 weeks later, on October 30th, 2012, a suspicious barrel was found at Hinase Harbor in Okayama Prefecture. The barrel contained the body of 53-year-old Jiro Hashimoto, again encased in concrete. Police suspected Miyoko and several members of her inner circle to be involved in the death of Jiro Hashimoto, whereas their suspicion grew even stronger after an informant tipped off the police about several others who had visited Miyoko's luxurious penthouse, after which they had disappeared. On the 5th of December, Miyoko, among others, was arrested and brought to a cell of Hyogo Prefecture's police department. In the early hours of the 12th of December, Miyoko had strangled herself and was pronounced dead after being brought to the hospital. Miyoko's suicide prompted police to analyze Miyoko's life and that of her extended family more in depth, after which investigators found a troubling history of abuse and crime spanning multiple decades and involving multiple families. During their investigation, a family-like network was revealed, with Miyoko as their matriarch, which only became more and more complex the deeper they dug. Let's break down this strange and extremely twisted case, spanning at least 25 years, and explore how one woman could be the cause of so much tragedy and death by manipulating those around her. And let's find out why this matriarch caused her family to be dubbed as the Piranha family. Miyoko Sumida was born in 1948 in downtown Amagasaki, Hyogo prefecture. Her father worked as a contractor and earned some of his money by offering other workers a place to stay in his house for part of their salary. As workers grew obedient to him, Miyoko learned by example to take control over others from a young age. Due to Miyoko's father's work, the family was rather wealthy, though he seemed to be absent a lot. Because of this, Miyoko was often surrounded by the rough men that her father brought home. She reportedly rarely went to school and often got into trouble due to crimes like shoplifting. Because her parents were barely home, she often stayed at her grandmother's house. In a TV interview, one of her junior high school teachers recalls Miyoko's troubling past, with even sometimes involvement of police. As Miyoko progressed through high school, she eventually dropped out and worked at various snack bars in the Amagasaki and Yokohama region. In 1968, at the age of 19, police scouted the area for criminal activity due to the upcoming Osaka Expo of 1970. At this time, Miyoko was arrested for soliciting prostitution of a 16-year-old girl. In adulthood, Miyoko was known to wear lots of makeup, and many men allegedly fell for her looks. By the time Miyoko was in her mid-20s, she had been divorced twice. During her life, she'd been frequently spotted with people who were possibly connected to the Japanese underworld, though this hasn't been confirmed to be true. Miyoko apparently carried an intimidating aura, as neighbors and those in Amagasaki reported to be afraid of her and the members of her inner circle. One local restaurant owner recalls that Miyoko had visited his restaurant with a few men. She had reportedly claimed a fly was in her food. After the store owner apologized, Miyoko reportedly said, "So, 50,000 or 100,000 yen? Which one is it?" The restaurant owner responded by giving her 100,000 yen and stated that he felt relieved to still be alive after the encounter. Miyoko eventually moved into a luxurious condo in Amagasaki, spending vast amounts of money on expensive items. A restaurant operator who was invited into Miyoko's home 3 years before her arrest told in an interview that Miyoko had showed him a glass case containing multiple medals and tableware worth over 200 million yen. He also said that the apartment was dim and that the home looked like a VIP room in a bar. The apartment had been home to several members of Miyoko's inner circle. While several families have been affected over the years, the amount and reliability of information per event differs greatly. On top of that, multiple families were taken apart over long periods of time, of which time intervals often overlap each other. Let's go over every family that was known to be involved, one by one, to get a grasp on what happened in this rather complex case. It's the end of the 90s and Miyoko approaches the youngest son of the Yokochi family, who was around his early to mid-teens at the time. Miyoko somehow convinced the youngest son to borrow money off of her due to the large debt he held. After this, Miyoko tricked the family into giving her their land. She allegedly manipulated the Yokochi family into fighting one another, slowly turning them against each other. It's said that Miyoko often let family members stand for long periods of time, forced them to work without breaks, and eventually made family members torture each other. In 1999, events took such a bad turn that according to some sources, the mother of the Yokochi family was tortured to death. The oldest son of the family allegedly committed suicide due to shame of what happened with his mother. Information about the father of the family could not be found. Miyoko and her husband, Yutaro, decided to adopt the 2 other orphaned children, brainwashing them until they couldn't remember their parents. To this day, the youngest son, now going by the name Kentaro Sumida, is believed to have played an important part in the crimes Miyoko undertook. The other adopted son apparently has gone missing at one point, and he's never been found. Miyoko was related to the Hashimoto family and had allegedly spent time with the family as a child. It's reported that Miyoko stayed at a Hashimoto family home in 1981 for a period of time. The reason for her stay is unknown. The Hashimoto family at this time consisted of Hisashi Hashimoto, his younger brother Jiro, and their mother. Another person who joined the household at this time was a woman under the name Miyako. Miyako was born in 1953 and came from a poor family. Her father was often drunk and both parents were allegedly addicted to playing pachinko. Miyako eventually ends up renting a room in Miyoko's mother's house after Miyoko's parents got divorced. Around January of 1989, on Miyoko's request, Miyako is adopted by Miyoko's mother, making Miyako and Miyoko sisters. After this rather late adoption, Miyoko's mother dies only 2 months after. Before this though, a few strange events happened surrounding the Hashimoto family. In 1987, the mother of the Hashimoto family disappeared mysteriously and suddenly appeared to be noted as deceased in the family register. Her sudden disappearance has been marked as suspicious. In September of 2000, Hisayoshi Hashimoto buys a condo in Amagasaki with a loan of 29.8 million yen. In order to acquire the money, a woman named Mitsue Ando is written as one of the guarantors on the contract. Mitsue Ando was the woman Miyoko's elder brother was in a relationship with. Another interesting detail is that Hisayoshi took out a policy known as a group credit life insurance, which exempts mortgage holders from the balance on their loans should they die. The year after, in 2001, Miyako marries Hisayoshi Hashimoto. In July of 2005, Miyoko and Miyako took a holiday in Okinawa as part of a group consisting of 9 people, including Miyako's husband, Hisayoshi Hashimoto. During their trip, they visited Manzamo Cliff in Onna, Okinawa Prefecture, a 30-meter high cliff and a rather well-known suicide hotspot. The group of 9 gathered for a photo nearby the cliff's edge. While standing in the back, 51-year-old Hisayoshi falls to his death. While the incident is initially seen as a suicide, police reopened the case after Miyoko's arrest. Apparently, the insurance policy payout to Miyako was initially believed to be around 10 million yen, though it was later confirmed to be over 90 million yen due to 2 more insurance policies that were taken out in the name of Hisayoshi only 6 to 12 months prior to his death. The insurance policies were made out to the junior Sumida, which was probably Miyako, as she changed her last name to Sumida after her adoption and was about 5 years Miyoko's junior. Miyako used some of the insurance money to pay off Miyoko's expensive condo. On top of the insurance money, Miyako was also cleared of her 30 million yen mortgage due to the special insurance policy Hisayoshi had taken. Miyako used the now paid off condo to again take out a loan of 16 million yen. Police eventually investigated the mysterious death of Hisayoshi, partly due to several claims of acquaintances that believed Hisayoshi was forced into committing suicide. After a long trial period of 132 days, among others, Yutaro Sumida, Miyoko's son, was officially sentenced for his role in the coerced suicide of Hisayoshi, 7 years after Hisayoshi's death. On October 30th, 2012, a suspicious barrel was found at about a 3-meter depth in Hinase Harbor in Okayama Prefecture's Bizen. The barrel was estimated to be dumped somewhere in July of 2011 and contained the body of 53-year-old Jiro Hashimoto encased in concrete. Jiro had been living with Miyoko for a while, though he tried to escape to Tokyo more than once. Around 2002, Jiro tried to escape to Tokyo's Toshima ward. According to a police informant, Miyoko had told him she'd go to Tokyo around 2005 to take Jiro back to her Amagasaki apartment. Miyoko had researched Jiro's whereabouts beforehand and discussed with her family members where Jiro was probably hiding. Together with some of her family members, Miyoko and her cousin, Masanori Ri, staked out the neighborhood Jiro was hiding in. Sumida had ordered the group to check the balconies for the way Jiro's clothes would be drying. Miyoko had purportedly said, "He would smooth out his laundry. He must be living here." After finding Jiro, the members of the Sumida group stayed in Jiro's house for a few days, during which Jiro even showed up at his job. Jiro had told his colleagues that he was afraid for his life and that he might be killed. After a few days of living in fear, Jiro was brought back to Miyoko's Amagasaki apartment. In autumn of 2007, Jiro tried escaping to Tokyo again, this time hiding in the Adachi ward. In 2009, members of Miyoko's group tracked Jiro down again and took him back to Amagasaki, where he'd be alive for another 2 years according to police. According to members of the Piranha family, under Miyoko's orders, they locked Jiro in a confined space on the balcony of Miyoko's apartment. Prior to his death, Jiro was said to be locked on the balcony for several days until he died from dehydration and the physical abuse by several members of the Sumida family. Investigators found out Jiro had been kicked and punched on a regular basis. Not only in Jiro's case, but also that of other victims, Miyoko's apartment was the central place for the Piranha family and is presumably where a lot of crimes happened. A Kobe district report describes the Amagasaki apartment on the top floor of an 8-story building. The apartment contains 75 square meters of floor space, and a significant balcony area can be appreciated on the following layout. A shed can be noticed on the overview as well, in which the members of the Sumida family held their victims captive, as the shed could be locked from the outside. On photos made by the police, the balcony area shows wooden fences which block the view from the outside. Photos made after Miyoko's arrest show the balcony area at which all horror took place in more detail. Pictures of the inside of the apartment show the luxurious lifestyle in which the family was living, financed by those who had been tortured and neglected in the very same apartment. Around 2001, Miyoko first came in contact with the Minayoshi family through her own husband. Apparently, her husband went to the same middle school as the eldest son of the Minayoshi household. The Minayoshi family consisted of mother Nori Minayoshi, 2 sons and 2 daughters. Miyoko was soon on good terms with the family, as she had done in the past with other families. The older son was a janitor at a primary school in Amagasaki, but was soon manipulated to leave his job in 2002 by Miyoko. After quitting his job as a janitor, the elder Minayoshi's son moved in with Miyoko in her luxurious apartment, though he went missing the following year. The younger son of the family had by this time moved in with Miyoko as well, and he had been manipulated into giving his older brother's pension to Miyoko to pay off his daily living expenses. The elder son, who had been living under a false name in a labor lodge for years, was tracked down by police years later. He'd stated, "I tried to escape Sumida's place many times, but was taken back every time I tried. I'm afraid of her." The second son had eventually left Miyoko's apartment and died in 2011 in Tokyo due to an unrelated disease around the age of 69. The older 60-year-old daughter of the family had been missing during the process as well, though she has never been found. Unfortunately, the younger daughter of the family, Hajime Minayoshi, wasn't immune to the Piranha family either. In 2003, Takamatsu City, Kagawa Prefecture, Miyoko took her first interest in Hajime's part of the family. Hajime lived together with her then husband, with the last name Tanimoto, older daughter Mariko, and younger daughter Rui. Miyoko, who at this point acquired quite a lot of wealth, helped pay off the debt of the Tanimoto family. At the time, Rui was a high school student who believed her mother and older sister thought less of her. Miyoko used this insight to turn Rui against the family and worsen the relationship between her and her parents. On the other hand, Miyoko forced Hajime to say bad things about Rui by asking her things like, "Do you only love Mariko?" And "Didn't you want your younger child as much as Mariko?" At one point, Miyoko stayed in a Tanimoto home and started assaulting family members while locking them in their own home, while also taking their money. Relatives and acquaintances of the family had said that at one point, the father of the family's ears were burned. They also had said that the daughters began to believe Miyoko's brainwashing. Both Mariko and Rui started saying their father was no good, and even started beating their parents themselves. The father of the family had eventually divorced Hajime, and while no detailed information can be found, Hajime had supposedly died around these events, presumably at the hands of the Sumida family. At the time, police had allegedly been contacted several times, though they had stated they would not get involved in the case due to it being a civil matter. In only a few months, Miyoko had taken over the Tanimoto household and eventually asked Mariko and Rui to come live with her. Younger daughter Rui was a susceptible high school student who was manipulated into dropping out of high school and moving in with Miyoko. Rui eventually changed her name to Hana, which was a name given to her by Miyoko. She only got tangled up more into Miyoko's family when she eventually married Miyoko's son, Yutaro. While younger daughter Rui moved in with Miyoko, older daughter Mariko didn't obey Miyoko's orders and opposed Miyoko. Because of this, Mariko became the target of Miyoko's mental and physical abuse. Instead of susceptible younger sister Rui, Mariko was married and working at a software company. Mariko eventually fled Miyoko multiple times, once to Osaka and another attempt to Okinawa, where she stayed for 4 years. During her time on the run, Mariko tried changing her passport, though she was found during this process and brought back to Amagasaki by Miyoko in 2007. Upon her return in December of 2007, Mariko was kidnapped by her younger sister Rui and was locked in the shed on the balcony of Miyoko's condo, where she lived in dire circumstances. Rui acted as one of Miyoko's assistants in confining and torturing Mariko. In 2008, Rui was ordered by Miyoko to kill her own sister Mariko, who had been held and weakened on Miyoko's veranda. While no information can be found about his involvement, Mariko's husband, Yasushi Nakashima, has in the end also been arrested for his involvement in Mariko's death.
兵庫県尼崎市の住宅地。民家の床下から昨日2人の遺体が発見され、今夜新たに3人目の遺体が見つかった。
時刻は午後8時45分です。捜索開始から3日目、3人目の遺体が乗せられていると思われる警察関係車両が今捜索現場を後にしようとしています。
昨日発見された遺体の1人は70歳ぐらいの白髪の女性とみられ、もう1人は20代から30代の女性だった。いずれも白骨化し、死後1年以上経っているという。ここで一体何が起こったのか。
On the 14th of October 2012, police discovered 2 corpses under the unoccupied Amagasaki home of 88-year-old Nori Minayoshi, Rui's grandmother. Police described the bodies as 150 centimeter tall without any sign of external injuries. The first body seemed to be of a decomposed woman between the ages of 60 and 80 years old, with gray hair, presumably that of 71-year-old Mitsue Ando, the girlfriend of Miyoko's elder brother. The body had been partially skeletonized and partially mummified, and was partially covered in concrete. Based on the decomposition, sources concluded she must have died years earlier. The second body was found about 2 meters away from the first body and was described to have 10 centimeter long hair. This was believed to be the body of 29-year-old Mariko Nakajima, Rui's older sister. A day later, on the 15th of October 2012, investigators found a third body under the same home, which was partially decomposed and had been wrapped in a sheet. As in the case of Mitsue Ando's body, this body had been partially skeletonized and partially mummified, making it likely the deceased had died years earlier. It was later confirmed this body probably belonged to 68-year-old Takashi Tanimoto, Rui's uncle from her father's side of the family. The house under which the bodies were found had presumably been empty since Nori Minayoshi had been missing since 2003. The last 8 years, Rui had been paying the rent for the home and simultaneously collected around 4 million yen of Nori's pension money. At the time, it was believed Nori had passed away and had been buried at a friend's home in Kagawa Prefecture. While Nori Minayoshi's death has not been widely reported, in December of 2012, the GG Press reported that a body linked to Miyoko Sumida had been found. According to police, the body was found in a shed used for storing agricultural equipment in Takamatsu. A YouTube video can be found where police investigate the location where the body was found, possibly belonging to Nori Minayoshi. In 2009, Miyoko complained to a local railway company about her stroller getting stuck in one of the train tracks. The railway worker handling the complaint, 42-year-old Hiroyuki Kawamura, allegedly became instantly fascinated by Miyoko. Hiroyuki was a married man and lived together with his wife, 42-year-old Yumi Oe, her 44-year-old sister, Kai, and their mother, 66-year-old Kazuko Oe. In the upcoming months, Miyoko grew closer to Hiroyuki and somehow managed to manipulate the family of 4 to move to a one-bedroom apartment across the street from Miyoko's home. As advised by Miyoko, Hiroyuki quit his job as a railway employee and tried starting a coffee shop. Miyoko helped Hiroyuki with finding a property, though made him sign over his 3 million yen retirement check as payment for her help. During the following months, Miyoko became increasingly restrictive and manipulative. Drinking water was limited to half a liter a day, and use of the toilet was restricted to 2 times a day. During this period, Hiroyuki had divorced his wife Yumi, but still kept living with her family. Apparently, Miyoko had ranked a family in which Kazuko Oe had ranked lowest. This meant she suffered the most abuse.
今回の現場からおよそ1キロ離れた尼崎市内のこちらの倉庫では、去年11月、コンクリート詰めにされた女性の遺体が発見されています。今回の遺体の捜索・発見は、そもそもその事件が発端となっています。
On November 9, 2011, Kazuko Oi's body was found encased in concrete in a metal drum in a warehouse in Amagasaki. Miyoko was eventually indicted for inflicting injury resulting in her death. Police arrested Miyoko on the 5th of December 2011 for her role in Kazuko Oi's death, while Miyoko's cousin, Masanori Ri, was eventually sentenced to prison for his role. Besides Miyoko and her cousin, Hiroyuki, his wife Yumi, and her sister Kai were indicted for the torture and murder of Kazuko Oe as well. In the end, it was believed the 2 sisters, together with Hiroyuki, tortured and killed their own mother under Miyoko's orders. On the 5th of December 2012, Miyoko was arrested by the Hyogo prefectural police for her involvement in dumping Jiro Hashimoto's body. The arrest happened partially due to police receiving a tip from an informant, stating that several people had visited Miyoko's luxurious penthouse and had afterwards disappeared. Miyoko had mentioned on several occasions to both police officers as well as her lawyer, Hajime Takagi, that it was meaningless to continue living. She had reportedly told an officer, "I want to die. How can I kill myself?" This caused Miyoko to be on suicide watch.
隅田美代子容疑者は私の後ろの県警本部の建物の3階にある女性用の留置場に留置されていました。同じ部屋には美代子容疑者を含め3人が寝起きしていたということです。兵庫県警によりますと、今朝6時21分、巡回していた留置管理課の女性の巡査長が布団の中で首に黒の長袖 T シャツを巻いて動かない状態になっている美代子容疑者を発見しました。すでに意識はなく病院に運ばれましたが、7時15分に死亡が確認されました。今朝は5時55分の時点では美代子容疑者の寝息はあったということですが、6時10分に巡査長は寝息がないのでおかしいと気づいたということです。留置場は3人部屋で、他の2人は当時就寝中だったということで、美代子容疑者の異変には気づかなかったとみられています。美代子容疑者は今年10月22日以降、留置管理課の担当者に死にたい、どうやったら死ねるかと複数回話していたということで、警察は特別要注意者にして監視していました。巡回は1時間に4回行っていたということです。美代子容疑者は弁護人にも、生きて出られないのであれば生きていても意味がないなどと話していたということです。一連の変死事件の真相の解明には大きな影響が出そうです。
While Miyoko's suicide came as a shock for the affected families, it was revealed Miyoko had pointed out several times that she wanted to die. While police checked her cell 4 times every hour, many stated she should have been on a 24/7 suicide watch. During the time she'd been left alone, she had killed herself without alarming the 2 other people in her cell. The night before her suicide, she had reportedly said she was alright. Due to Miyoko's suicide, it's not truly known how many victims have been abused and killed, though at least 8 victims connected to this case have been confirmed dead. Due to Miyoko's death, all members of the Piranha family pointed towards Miyoko as the mastermind behind the operation they'd been running. While this could certainly be true, Miyoko had supposedly never killed anyone directly. Overall, it's speculated that the Piranha family is responsible for even more deaths. At least 8 victims are confirmed to have died due to the Piranha family's doing. One source who tipped off investigators described the family as a highly organized crime family, telling police that multiple people had entered the luxurious Amagasaki apartment and had never returned. The informant continued that Miyoko and her inner circle were so intimidating that they forced family members of at least one of the victims to participate in her death. According to the source, the following hierarchy existed in the family. Miyoko Sumida as central figure, sister-in-law Miyoko Sumida as designated treasurer, cousin Masanori Ri as bodyguard, daughter-in-law Rui as chosen successor and leadership. Son Yutaro Sumida and adopted son Kentaro Sumida have not been explicitly named, but are believed to be involved in many of the crimes as well. Miyoko's husband, Yutaro Azumayori, was involved in the crimes, though his role has never been clear. Another police source confirmed victims were confined in a storage shed at Miyoko's condo, in which they were given only small amounts of water. As meal, victims would receive dehydrated noodles and other instant food only once a day. Other than informants, neighbors of the Sumida family came forward as well. The Sumida family was described as scary and hostile, especially Miyoko's cousin, Masanori Ri, was reported to be very intimidating. One neighbor stated that one of the neighboring families were forced to move due to their crying baby. Another neighbor had complimented the flowers of Miyoko, after which one of the family members yelled, Don't look into people's houses. The following sentences have been given. Yutaro Sumida, Miyoko's real son, was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Yasushi Nakajima, the husband of Mariko, was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Miyoko Sumida was sentenced to 21 years in prison. Kentaro Sumida, the adopted son, was sentenced to 21 years in prison as well. Yutaro Azumayori, Miyoko's husband, was sentenced to 21 years in prison. And Rui Sumida was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Masanori Ri got life in prison. Even though at least 8 victims were confirmed to have died, the sentences were quite low. Also, none of the defendants were tried for the death penalty. It's sad that due to Miyoko's suicide, the key person in the case was gone, after which all the others were charged as if they were merely secondary to Miyoko. The financial motive of the Piranha family's crimes became clearer at the 4th hearing on the 28th of January at Kobe District Court, as Miyoko Sumida offered some insight into the financial situation of the family. While the household's monthly income was between 500 and 700,000 yen, spending was typically around 1.2 and 1.3 million yen. According to court records, at the time of her arrest, service charges for Miyoko's apartment had fallen behind nearly 80,000 yen. Miyoko's condo was seized by courts, and her condo and expensive items were auctioned in November of 2012 due to collective debt problems. Other than the trial, the general public showed a lot of criticism towards the Hyogo police department. A first point of criticism is that Miyoko had not been on 24/7 suicide watch after her arrest, even though she had spoken of wanting to die to police multiple times. Due to her death, the other members probably got off with lighter sentences, and the families of the victims were left in the cold. A second complaint towards police had been the management of the case overall. Apparently, there had been multiple complaints by neighbors and Amagasaki residents in the past, dating back as far as 1998. Iki Ono describes in his book that Miyoko abused a 60-year-old woman in March of 1998. After a neighbor had seen the incident, the police was called. Because the abused woman didn't voluntarily leave the house when police arrived, the police didn't pursue the case any further. That same year, a 40-year-old man had complained to police 3 times about the Sumida family, though police had not intervened due to it being a civil matter. The same man went to the police in 2000 for a 4th time, this time to tell police he'd been pressured into committing crimes with the Sumida family. Police eventually arrested some of the Sumida family members, though only on suspicion of stealing supplies. During Miyoko's infiltration of the Yokochi family, the family had reportedly filed complaints to the police about Miyoko. Police had not interfered with the matter due to it being family conflicts. Neighbors of the Yokochi family had contacted police on the day the Yokochi family's mother had been tortured to death. Police had only visited the property, but again didn't interfere in the matter. On March 16, 2013, Police Chief Jun Kurata bowed after reporting the results of the investigation into Miyoko's suicide. The general public stayed very critical towards their approach of the case overall. Amagasaki had been known as a rough industrial area neighboring Osaka, with around 460,000 people living in Amagasaki around the time of Miyoko's reign. Before the arrest of Miyoko and her family members, Amagasaki's reputation was dubious. A 2006 survey of neighboring prefectures showed 62% of respondents said that the town had a poor safety record, while 58% of respondents considered Amagasaki as dirty. Well, in recent years, a lot of effort was made to better Amagasaki's reputation. The criminal activity of the Piranha family impacted the area significantly. After Miyoko's arrest, local businesses and schools were affected by the incidents. A school neighboring Amagasaki reported that of 15 middle school students that signed up for a trip to a local factory, Only 3 students showed up due to the incidents. According to a local real estate agent, homes constructed of wood resembling the house that the 3 bodies were found below were not selling well at the time either. Because Miyoko was often surrounded by intimidating men, it was rumored Miyoko had been involved with the Amagasaki underworld. While some suggested a link between Miyoko and the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, an alleged Yakuza member denied their involvement with Sumida. In an interview with the Tokyo Reporter, the supposed Yakuza member said the following: "We don't pack bodies in drums and dump them at sea. That's the work of amateurs." Adding, "Flesh decays and releases gas that's powerful enough to crack concrete, so a medical coroner can determine that a body is inside the concrete." Yakuza throw bodies into a mix of coal tar and gravel, heated to 3,000 degrees Celsius. This way the body is mixed with asphalt, and no DNA traces can be found. There are costs involved. A contract will need to be taken out with a Chinese middleman with a going rate of 200,000 yen. Other than Amagasaki's image, the case had raised discussion as how things could have come this far. This resulted in several books analyzing this case. One of the books, named Family Eating, The Case of Amagasaki's Truth of Continuous Unnatural Death by Iko Ono, goes into more detail about the case and is an interesting read for sure. Other than that, Miyoko has also been included in several crime-like cartoons. In the end, it's not known how many victims have been linked to Miyoko Sumida's reign of terror, and some believe more bodies found in Okayama and Kagawa prefecture are somehow linked to Miyoko and her inner circle. While most members of the Piranha family serve their time in prison, Miyoko will unfortunately never pay for her role as the central figure of the family. After all, we should recognize that the influence one person may have on others can go to extreme lengths, as can be witnessed in this case. It's also important to recognize that we should be aware of our surroundings, as clues of darker events may prevent crimes and even death. May the victims of the Piranha family rest in peace, and may those still suffering heal with time.